from the Mercy One studio. Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Bishop Joensen coming to you from a remote location.
Kelly Mesher-Collins, my co-host, is on furlough with the rest of the Pastoral Center staff. So we hope Kelly's relaxing and taking some time to be renewed as well. And so we've got a little bit different format for you. As again, the password, or the clue word is mitten, to disclose that on the location that we're at as well. So a beautiful summer day, and as we're here, we're thinking shout out to Archbishop Lucas of Omaha, who this past Wednesday celebrated the anniversary of his installation as Archbishop of Omaha since 2009. Congratulations, Archbishop Lucas, and of course shouldering that extra yoke too as administrator of the Lincoln Diocese. So we pray for you and lift you up to the Lord, that the Spirit might continue to anoint your ministry in beautiful ways. I had great grace as a bishop last Saturday as I was at St. Elizabeth's Assisi Parish in Carlisle. I had my first baptism as a bishop. I may have done hundreds, if not thousands, as a priest, but to do this was a special grace. And Evelyn K. Deskamp, daughter of Leslie and TJ, into the church. She was just a delightful little peach there as well. And at one point I made reference to my mentor, Monsignor Robert Stopulos, talking about how we come into the world. She started cooling along with me. So, in a few years we'll be doing a duet, appearing, in different ways. So conscious, more sober note of the execution of Dustin Lee Honkin last week in Terre Haute, Indiana, at the federal prison. Sobering thing. And Courtney Crowder's account in the Des Moines Register this past Monday of witnessing that, asking us, are we really better? Was justice served? Was there healing for victims of Dustin's executions? And in different ways. So we're grateful that Father Mark O'Keefe, a Benedictine priest of St. Meinrad Abbey, was able to be present to him and offer the consoling presence of God and bless him in that way. So a mystery that's kind of inscrutable where he was in terms of his standing to God, but as for each of us, we trust in the mercy of God and blessing in that way. Summer months here today on this feast of Charbel Maklouf, Saint Charbel, a Lebanese monk and hermit, but who managed to combine time away with time before the Blessed Sacrament. It's great reverence for Jesus. And I think that's a friendly reminder to us, all Catholic Christians, that though we may break from our regular schedules, and obviously COVID has upended some of our routines, that we can find ways to be present to our Eucharistic Lord. Many who are still present through the respect for our protocols at Mass, at churches, others wisely saying that maybe they're a little more vulnerable. But the opportunity to stop by and pray, our churches remain open to make time before the Blessed Sacrament and our Eucharistic Lord to grace as any hermit or contemplative does, to bring the Lord's presence to bear upon the world, and we so sorely need it. I'm grateful to be with some priest friends of mine, people that I've known for some time here as I take a few days away in the concluding part of the furlough. I'm joined by Father Kyle Digman, pastor of St. Thomas Aquinas Parish and Catholic Student Center in Ames. A lot of our Des Moines Catholic young people find their way up to Iowa State University, even though Father Kyle would trace his bloodlines to you and I, and maybe we'll hear a little bit more from that as well. Father Michael McAndrew, also newly ordained priest last year, associate pastor at St. Francis of Assisi Parish in Marshalltown, the largest parish in that region. A lot of Hispanic presence, so his bilingual capacities and his own cares will work in. And then finally also Father Scott Bullock, pastor of St. Edward's Parish in Waterloo, Iowa, and Cedar Valley Schools Catholic coordinator and other things, and former rector for Father Kyle and Father Michael. So just Father Scott, just any question to set up our break here? Yeah.
Well, I know that when Father Kyle and Father Michael were in seminary, Father Joensen was now Bishop Joensen was their philosophy instructor as well as a spiritual director. So I'd like to know how this man influenced your life, for good or bad.
I don't know that we want to know the response to that, but we'll let the good fathers ponder this here.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. According to a 2019 Global Food Security Report, more than 820 million people in the world are hungry today. None of us can help all of them. Most of us can help one child. Your gift of $1 a day through Blessman International provides a child in South Africa with a daily hot meal, place of safety, educational experience, and spiritual development. To get started, go to blessmaninternational.org and click Sponsor a Child.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
And you're back with Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Again, I feel without my aide de camp, Kelly Mesher Collins, but we'll try and press on with the Spirit's assistance here. So, Father Bullock, throw out the question to you both, Father Kyle and Father Michael. And if you need me to lead the spirits so we're together so you can speak candidly,
Just close your ears.
Be merciful.
Oh, well, I see.
Father Michael, thank you.
So I was, at Loras College, 2013 to 2015, and so Father Bullock, I think, was the rector, and Father Joensen. Now, Bishop Joensen was the director of spiritual life as well as our philosophy professor. So I had a class with him every time, and so it took me a little bit to figure out his style of teaching. Sometimes I realized I just needed to figure out some things for myself. And I was blessed to have good seminary brothers and his willingness to meet with us and talk with us outside of class was always very helpful. But
as some would say, I may be speaking English, but it's a language with which we're not always familiar. I have no
idea where it's coming from. But that's the nature of philosophy.
I think we all, and the birthing process, we kind of have to experience our own deaf and muteness in a certain way. And we say, Ephatha, we open. So, Father Kyle, any thoughts?
So I remember coming to Loras College and entering seminary, and very academic. You're studying philosophy, so when you're thinking about being a priest and serving, studying like modern philosophers isn't exactly the most exciting thing to get thrown into. But I do remember, I guess one of the bigger impacts was Father Joensen, now Bishop Joensen's love for study and philosophy, which was not a part of my life at that time. I had gone to the great University of Northern Iowa, and that was mostly a time of self-discovery and other stories that I can't share on Catholic radio. So going into seminary was, it was a bit of change of pace. And one of the things I fell in love with that I didn't plan on falling in love with was learning philosophy and wisdom. So that was something that I know Bishop Joensen modeled to me. His love for it, his appreciation made me want that as well. I saw he's got this love. More than that was his love for the priesthood. He wasn't just a teacher or an intellect. He was in love with Christ, and he was a priest who loved it. So instead of looking at
don't just look at my brain. Look at my face.
I'm down here.
No, but the church's wisdom, no pun intended, in asking of men that they experience program philosophy to really, how has the human community addressed the ultimate questions over time? So I won't make an apologia for philosophy now. Michael, you've been living in pastoral experience that first year, honeymoon as a priest, perhaps?
Yeah.
But also some unique challenges. Any thoughts? And, you're fortunate to be living with two priests, so a little micro community there in Marshalltown, but any observations?
Yeah. So I moved into St. Francis Parish just last year in May in July, actually. And I've loved it there. It is a very big parish. We were two parishes before, St. Henry's and St. Mary's, that have now combined into one, with both churches still operating. But it's been a real joy to live with the pastor, Father Alan Dietzenbach, and just a recently retired Father Dwayne Toman. And so we have a great little community there that we've established in our rectory that we eat dinner together. And, we found that priestly fraternity, I think we know this as priests, that is just so important. And so having that is really the lifeblood of a lot of my ministry. But then the people in Marshalltown are fantastic. I like as a new priest that I get to just experience a lot of things. And that's what this first year has really been about learning how to do marriage prep, how to baptize a baby and not waterboard the baby or something. And so in my ministry as well, there's a lot of, there's this great Hispanic community there, and their faith is beautiful, and it's something that inspires me every day. But so I get to do a lot of ministry in Spanish, a lot of quinceañeras and a lot of weddings in Spanish. And just, 3 of our masses on the weekends are Spanish as well. So figuring out how to homilize in Spanish has been an ongoing challenge as well, but one that has been a real fruitful one, and just really grateful for the people there have been encouraging me in that way, and just really calling out my priesthood for me. I think that's one of the big things about priesthood, is that the people have called it out of me. That's something that I've really noticed, that as soon as I was a priest, it just started, where they started asking for that stuff.
And it's marvelous. Yeah, the people of God continue to form us in a way as we give ourselves over in that way. And, with some Honduran roots, your own family, your parents. And so we don't just assume all Spanish speakers are all the same. There's a lot of cultural diversity in Spanish.
Absolutely.
So, well, Kyle, you're working with a whole diverse population. Obviously, Iowa State shut down with on-site things. Upended your world, as for all of us. But just observation now, the young people that you work with culturally, and the mindset that you're encountering as yourself, a fairly young priest.
Yeah. One of the big surprises going into campus ministry was how young college students are these days. I don't remember being maybe I got old. I don't know. But anyway, I think there's a lot that could be said.
How old are you? 35, 38?
But yeah, it's been pretty awesome to be able to be with those young people. So the millennial generation, there's a lot to be said about figuring out millennials, or whatever millennials do. But one thing that I've loved with the college students is their authenticity. There's not a whole lot of duplicity in them. They are either on fire and hungry for Christ and meaning and purpose in their life, or they're not. But people aren't sitting on the fence. They're not lukewarm. You see what you get. They're not gonna beat around the bush. And I've loved that, because you either know you gotta really try to proclaim the truth or help them find Christ, or they're gonna be passionate about it themselves. And I think when I think about vocations, when I think about priests, when I think about people that want to enter into holy marriages, have holy families, I think that's a pretty awesome thing to see those young people so intentional about that. One thing I don't see a whole lot of is, there's just a lot of fear, I think, in college about what is my future? What is my calling? How do I work all this out? And so there can be sort of paralysis happening because they don't want to make a decision or a commitment. But it's beautiful to see when they do make it, when they say, no, I want to be married to this person for the rest of my life. I want to enter seminary. Once they're free to be able to make that commitment forever, it's a pretty beautiful thing. But I do think in our modern culture, as a wise person once told me, is habituated to keep all your options open. Mm-hmm. And I think the college environment kind of keeps that going. It sort of makes you want to keep those options going. So one thing that I try to do in my ministry is just help them see the freedom of giving your whole heart to something. Like that's a beautiful thing to give everything. And when I see those students make that turn, it's a cool thing to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And thank you. And maybe we'll come back as we think about the cultural mindset that kind of fades into that. So Father Bullock, Father Scott, you obviously as a pastor of a fairly large parish and a diverse population coming into Waterloo in a way. But, in your spare time, besides being judicial vicar for the Archdiocese, you found the desire and the inclination to be teaching high school students at Columbus Catholic High School. Could you say why that became a priority?
Well, for sure. My desire is that the students can develop an ability for critical thinking, critical and view of the world. Our Catholic worldview is one where we use our intellect, we use reason to understand God's ways, and so it's a joy. So I teach English. I chose to do that instead of teaching religion or theology because, again, I want our students to know that their theology and religion is not just in one part of the world and the rest of the world is a religion-free zone. And so the fact that we try to, I teach them how to write, how to think, is hopefully preparing them for life as Catholics, no matter where they go. I actually was quite impressed with my students this year because they went all the way through January without a single day off of school. And so they began to pray earnestly that they could have some extra days off, feeling like they had been neglected. And I didn't realize what spiritual powerhouses they were, because they have succeeded like none other. 3 months off.
Now I wonder if they're praying to go back to school after being with their families in close quarters.
That would be their parents.
Yeah, their parents are definitely praying. So, well, we need to harness that for our session. Do you have another observation?
Well, just, they are inspiring. Like Father Kyle had mentioned, as all of us, we need to discipline our desires. And so they have a great passion for life, but I think what we bring them is directing that toward an end for which we've been created, to know, love, and serve God and give honor and glory to God. And they want to do that. They certainly want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very inspiring to be with them.
Yeah. I think I was coming across, and I hope I don't misattribute it, but even Paul Claudel was saying, that, if we can trust our desires if they truly are of, what God is leading us to, and that that's really honing, that we're not starting something, we're working with what God has endowed us in this way, and that we want to recover that trust.
Yeah, I remember hearing an analogy of sort of the desires and passions. So I think about this with college students a lot because they're very passionate and they have lots of desires and emotions. But it's like rocket fuel, right? It's a powerful thing. It's a good thing, but it has to be pointed in the right direction. If that rocket is even a small, there's a lot of aerospace engineers at Iowa State. So it's all rocket science.
SpaceX, baby.
But, they'll tell me if it's even a half a degree pointed in the wrong directions, of course that rocket fuel becomes disastrous.
Mm-hmm.
So much like our desires are great, it's very powerful, but directing that is not easy.
Right.
I mean, with some men, Father Michael, you're a very gifted singer, voice and everything else. And Father Scott, obviously, literature and everything, enlisting the imagination. Can you reflect for a little bit how, the imagination and, yes, philosophy, the critical and the analytical powers of the mind, but that's just only part of who we are as human beings.
Right. I think that my love of literature is engaging in the human experience, the human condition, and the fact that an author would explore, for example, how God's grace reaches us in a time of suffering is inspiring. It's inspiring to us to reflect on that, and I want to invite our young people into that adventure of being human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'd say for me with singing and music, that's been something that has just been a beautiful introduction into a spirituality for me. And that was the way that I experienced God in so many ways during high school and college, just having those experiences in choirs or singing and things. It's a transcendental sort of an experience for me. And the beauty of that really was, it always led me to want more, and I always felt very fulfilled by that, but even more than when it was really prayer, when I got to do that in a way that we were directed toward God with that, either by the choir director or in a church choir or something like that. So
Father Michael, I've seen how people are affected by your gift of music. It takes us to sometimes a wordless place, yes. A place of joy, a place of praise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the human heart is longing for as well.
Something I was struck with you, Father Michael, when I first knew you at Loris, is that there was nothing of performance in what you were doing. It was totally self-effacing. It was all pointing us all to God and not to Michael McAndrew. And not that that's a bad thing, but that's kind of where you were with us too. So,
that's the goal. Makes sense in life as well. Anything we do, if it becomes about us, whether it's our family or our work or whatever the case might be, when it's about me, it loses the beauty and transcendental nature of what our human life is supposed to be. So anything that anybody's doing, singing, working, normal things in their daily life, if it's about others, if it's about something higher, there's a beauty and truth
Absolutely.
to it that is so attractive. So singing more so than maybe other things.
Well,
Michael, you got a comment?
well, it's an easy one to see. But I think that, you show us fraternity for sure, Kyle. I think that's something I could see in you, and that it is a beautiful thing and something that is attractive. We want to be around that. So.
Yeah, with a couple minutes left in this segment, Kyle, you weren't holding forth, but you had some interesting reflections as we entered into our kind of relaxed mode here. But obviously, the conversations have a life of their own. Sometimes with a barley soda in hand, sometimes not, But kind of where you see generationally where the music may not necessarily guide us, where our passions, things that God intended to point us.
Right. In terms of culture, there are many different voices and forces that are out there. And I think that's challenging for young people, especially. It's challenging for me to sort of navigate those voices. However, I think at the heart of everyone, and I think, again, this is what maybe the younger generation is getting to, there is a hunger for something deeper, something more, that college students at least are being able to call out culture and be able to say, there's something more that I want here. There's something missing. It's difficult to navigate those. And it's difficult for them to hear amidst all those different voices. So I think if there's anything we can do, priests, parents, anybody, is to be that voice for truth, to recognize something transcendental in them, something that's could go beyond. So, we can be that voice.
Yeah. And we've certainly seen the kind of welling up of lots of voices, people who feel victimized and oppressed. Black Lives Matter, and then in the wake of the George Floyd death, and that's there. Is this a moment for us as a church, or for you and your very diverse communities that you serve now? Any thoughts, maybe Father Scott?
Yeah, of course we hope so. We always count on that, and having a large immigrant population in our parish, they help us to understand the immigrant experience, and it's easy for us if we don't have that experience of being someone who might feel an outsider or misunderstood. So we're really grateful for them.
Because you got people from Mexico, Latin America, Congo,
Togo, from across Africa, for sure.
So your polyglot gifts there in French,
we try.
Spanish. So we'll take a brief break. You're listening to Iowa Catholic Radio, Spirit Catholic Radio.
Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Is it time for a new roof? Then it could be time for you to get to know Bell Construction. Bell Construction is a roofing company entering its 30th year of business. They specialize in residential re-roofs, light commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494.
We're back. It's Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen, and not flying solo today, as I'm joined by some fine priests and hanging out a little bit on these days. Father Kyle and Father Michael, you traced some of your life path through Cedar Falls and the University of Northern Iowa, where I know a lot of our young people from the greater Des Moines area and Des Moines Diocese find their way there, some with a teaching vocation. Well, what was that place like for you? Where was God present or not present if you weren't open?
It's absolutely formative for me.
Father Michael.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, as opposed to Father. No, of course I mean deformed. Exactly. Yeah. So college is a time of self-discovery in a lot of ways, and so I think that's what I found in there was that I found that I was a lot more that I wanted from life, and my vocation was born there at the Student Center at St. Stephen and with my friends. But I just really relished those years. I think they were great, both as the music major part of it, but then having the experience at the Student Center, getting to be involved there and as a leader, and eventually finding a vocation of priesthood out of that. Never really expected that to come from there, but Cedar Falls still has a very fond place in my heart, and I think that'll always be there.
Yeah, I think our Regents universities are pivotal places for so many of our young people. I mean, obviously, I have a certain disposition to Catholic education, but I mean, I think the
this is where so much is happening, for young people.
Yeah, it's a pretty coming of age moment to leave home, of course, and be on your own. And I think that's when you ask the most pivotal questions of your life. What am I going to do? I mean, you're really out there on your own, and you have to figure it out. Yeah. So I remember that being formative. It surprised me how little I studied. but perhaps instead of studying, really reflecting deep down about what my life is and talking to friends about life things, it was a pretty huge moment. And I remember a philosophy professor, second best philosophy professor I ever had, next to Bishop Joensen, of course. But Jerome Sonneson at UNI.
I'm not buying your dinner tonight. I urge you try.
At least a bottle of wine. Professor Sonneson had mentioned in a philosophy class, he said all of the people that lived great lives, the greatest livers in all of history, found something not only worth living for, but even worth dying for. Absolutely. And that has stuck with me for a long time. So that question was huge when I was at UNI. Being a teacher was great. I loved the education school. It was a lot of education, which I didn't like as much. But that's when priesthood was really on my heart. If I can give every day from this life, from this day to the next, to help people encounter Christ.
So if our listeners haven't guessed yet, with the Mitten Clue up here in Michigan, on the main part of Michigan, east of Traverse City. So the helicopter's waiting to get me out of here. It's moving out of here. But kind of rustic place. But Father Bullock, you talk about English, but you really use both parts of your brain as your path led you to Iowa State.
Exactly right. Yeah, I used to be an engineer, but then I saw the light. Thankfully, the light came to me. But yeah, that was 29 years, or no, 35 years ago actually. But that's a formative place. I mean, that's why we put such an effort in our student centers, because we want to give. And for me, the experience was having a prayerful place, a place where I could go in and have sympathetic persons who held beliefs that I did, values that I held. But it was waiting for me. And when I was ready for it, it was ready to help me find my vocation. Mm-hmm. So that was goodbye engineering, hello theology.
The General Motors Institute and all of that, General Motors and all that you've done there. But, we can speak sometimes about the culture of the campus ministry and everything else. But Father Kyle, you were saying, some guys kind of fly under the radar screen too.
It's unbelievable, especially at Iowa State. It's been a hotbed for vocations, but the guys that come there are incredibly, they're already at a maturity level. And I think about a couple guys that entered seminary last year, and they were kind of involved in campus ministry, but not a lot. They were just good men in love with Christ that came from good families. And once they met Christ in the sacraments and asked the right questions, they were off to seminary to give their life for Christ.
So this wasn't a subtle recruiting pitch, but so be it if they're there. So I'm looking forward to some time in the saddle biking with some of you. Thanks to all of you who gave me some advice in my Catholic Mirror column. Make sure my tires are inflated. We'll definitely be doing that. And we'll make sure we're well nourished and hydrated as well. So peace to you. This is Making It Personal, Bishop Joensen. God bless you.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.